Today, we're fortunate to have Agnes Lan. She's the Vice President of Sales at Change Connect. And Change Connect is a Canadian boutique management consulting firm offering customized solutions for small to mid-sized businesses with a focus on sales transformation, helping them work more efficiently and effectively. And with that, Agnes, I'm going to turn things over to you.
I'll give you a little bit background about me. I've been doing management consulting for the last 18 years. I actually have an engineering background, so before that, I was an engineer. So I'm a changed career. And I can tell you that I just love the analytical part of sales. So gone are the days where you think sales is like, old school, you woo somebody and get a deal done. Those are long gone, right? You really got to understand the science of what make people tick. Back to what Carol was saying a little bit, and I want to break it down for you guys, because I think ultimately whatever technology we end up using, you got to understand some fundamentals. So what kept us, Change Connect. Change Connect has been around for the last, I would say, 11, 12 years now. We focus on sales, anything to do with sales. So, and that is all encompassing in sales strategy, sales coaching, sales management, sales training is a big part, because sales training is government subsidized. And right now we do a big program, which I'll talk to you guys about, which is the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which help businesses with buying technology or selecting technology. So there's quite a bit that we do, but we focus on the sales area. That is our claim to fame. Actually, we also do sales recruitment. Like pretty much anything to do with sales we do. We try to not mother ourselves with anything that does not have to do with sales. Although most of the consultants now have a full stack management consulting background. But let me tell you what we were busy with during COVID. And we've actually grew, I would say 100% during COVID as an organization, both in people and revenue. And we're probably going to be at 200% by the end of this year, this fiscal year. So one of the reasons is, if you look at what Carol was saying, because of the sophistication of sales right now, because everything is laid out, if you think about sales and closing a deal as being at the right place at the right time, traditionally people think that is luck. But there is so much out there with technology right now that being at the right place at the right time is not luck, it's engineered. You just have to know your people better in order for you to be at the right place at the right time. Now, back to what Carol was saying. So what we were kept very busy with during at least the initial phase of COVID is in the B2B world. I'm going to talk B2B world before we talk B2C. In the B2B world, actually, show of hand, how many of you guys are doing like B2B versus B2C, so I can make sure B2B? Okay. So I'm trying to focus most of the conversation on B2B then. So in the B2B sales cycle, if you think about it, in the old days, I would say in the old days, let's talk pre-COVID day. Okay, pre-COVID day, let me define some definitions first. So our definition, when we talk to clients to make it easier to understand, the definition of marketing is a one-to-many relationship. My marketing department produce collateral and it feeds to many people. Now, when I work with client on marketing and we talk about conversion ratio, I say, okay, if you send something out to, let's say 700 people, if 350 people find it engaging, then I think you have nailed your avatar. But if you send something to 700 people and only 7 people is engaged, or 14 people, right, are engaged, then it's safe for me to make an assumption that you haven't nailed your avatar. So there are things that you have to work with in the marketing world. I would rather you have 14 avatar, 14 communicate, but each being very engaging versus you telling me, oh, I'll just do one broad one, because you're not speaking to your customer, and hence you don't convert. My biggest concern with that, I was talking to a used car sales group yesterday. My biggest concern with them yesterday in their social, on their marketing side, is they sell vans, of course, right? They sell used car, right? They sell vans, women, especially women between the age of 32 to 45, where they're having their third child. They have a nailed particular avatar. Okay. They also sell F-150. And I was talking to them about the fact that if your communication to the F-150 group flows to my mother's group, I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying you dilute. And the more and more you dilute, the less and less engaged the mothers would be. Okay, so really having that avatar laid out so that you're effective in those channels. I would rather you do less avatar and target less people, but those less people are more engaged. That's what's going to ultimately, when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency in sales and marketing, that's what we're really re-engineering when we work with clients. Then on the flip side of that, on the sales side, of course, then it becomes a one-to-one relationship. How am I going to close? And in the technology world, we're really talking about automation. Because if for my rep to be managing, we were doing one project during COVID where our rep was dealing with 40 active deal at any point, so 40 clients at any point. By really working with them on the automation, they can now have one rep to 100 active clients. I'm not advocating for decreased headcount. I'm advocating for more business. Okay, so when you look into where automation help, that's what I'm talking about. But the whole thread has to do with understanding your customer better, okay, and knowing what they want to hear and not dilute. Now, back to what I was telling you, what we were really busy with during COVID is exactly what Carol was saying. So what we found in the B2B selling cycle, we said that before COVID, our research have shown that at about the 37% mark of your sales cycle, they have to reach out to a salesperson, one way or another, whether it's culture, whether it's just regularly what they do, whether it's lack of information on the internet. They're used to picking up the phone or emailing someone to get more information. Okay. But what we found post-COVID is that they don't really call that person until the 67% mark. Now, if you think about your sales cycle, you think about, between education to, finding solution, to shortlisting, to selection, right? To post sales and upsales. If you think about that whole chain, in the old days, pre-COVID, you still have, the salesperson can still say something in maybe the shortlisting selection stage, right? So solution stage, right? Nowadays, they're reaching out closer to when you're in the shortlisted stage, right? That means you're letting whatever you have out there, whatever you have out there could be a website, could be brochures, could be billboards, could be radio messaging, it could be social media, it could be your employees talking about you. I think that's one people that tends to forget is how powerful it is when your employee talks well about your business. So all that encompasses and get your client to the 67% mark. Now, if you think about the traditional way of sales, that means I likely won't have a chance of someone reaching me in the first place. But when they do get to me, now I have to close these people because they already self-selected that for whatever reason, we're a good fit. So now closing ratio for me, traditionally, I have measured my clients that, you have a problem if your closing ratio is less than 33%. Because likely when in the selection stage, you're going to be one of three things they have selected. If you have less than that, that means there's something wrong with your sales process. If you refine your process, I want you to be closer to the 50% stage, right? So, but if you look at the whole thing, now you're optimizing the sales part. I want them to be sitting at closing ratio closer to 50%. And then I'm going to work backward to look at the marketing collateral to get to the 67% mark to ensure that we get more of those opportunities. So that's actually what we've been really busy with during COVID is how do you change the sales workflow in a way that allows people fill the 37% mark to the 67% mark. Make sense? And that's something you guys really have to do and lay out in your business, because I hate to say it. Sometimes I say, oh, if we change the pitch this way, you're gonna change your your what we call advancement ratios from stage to stage. So advancement ratios from stage to stage, you can change it from 40 to 45%. They're like, oh, shucks, only 5%, whatever. I don't want to change it. But 5%, depending on where you are in the pipeline, have significant difference to your bottom line. So, and every 5% here, 5% here, 5% here, it all adds up. So, and analyzing that is important. That's a process thing, and not people thing as well. But today we're going to talk about technology. Technology really helps to make it more efficient. To be fair, actually, I'm going to give you some stats today. It's actually quite interesting stat that I grabbed from BDC. So I'll share a little bit of that as well. Ready to get to some tech talk? All right.
That was really good.
Thanks. I love sales. I don't know why I ever become an engineer. Or became, why I started, it's beyond me. Okay, so I told you a little bit about me already. So today we're gonna break it down into four different things. Number one, incorporate tech into your sales process. The second thing I'm gonna talk about is the capability of tech. What are we looking for in tech? And then number three, how do you make decisions around tech? And number four, let's build your own action plan. So let's start off with this whole, well, Agnes, you said you want me to build a sales stack, right? Sales stack is, when people talk about stacking, people are talking about technology on top of technology that talk to each other. Okay, long gone are the day that you just buy technology that don't talk to each other, because that's also create inefficiency. Okay, so when you buy technology, I want you to think about whether this tech has an open API or a connection or an API integration with something else. Okay, so for example, I think Carol says she's on HubSpot. HubSpot, I know, connects to Shopify. So for some of my B2C clients, we talk about connecting those so that the data flow back and forth such that it allows them to do campaign analysis. And then the campaign become even more efficient as they go on. Back to the Salesforce world, I don't even have to. Derek's in the Salesforce world. In the Salesforce world, is even more robust because they have their own ecosystem. So I always like to say for my small, mid-sized business guys, if you don't have time to do vendor selection, go with Salesforce. And to this day, I still say the same thing, because vendor selection or tech selection is one of the hardest things to do for a small business, because you don't know, and you're not going to spend a lot of time on it. So the easier thing to do is to buy into this, and I don't get commission from Salesforce, guys. This is my honest opinion. The easier thing to do is to work in the Salesforce ecosystem, because they already vetted their vendors for you. So let's say I'm using Salesforce Sales, right? And let's say I want for some reason I want a billing system, or actually I want an accounting system. That's actually even more regular. I want an accounting system, right? So I'm going to go into their app exchange, right? Our version, like your Apple version of App Store. You're going to type accounting, and you're going to look into the Salesforce world. What else are other people using in the accounting world? Whether it's Financial Force, right? Whatever it is. And then you're going to select to pay an extra $20 a month more. And then now that connects to your Salesforce instance. Okay, so there's quite a bit of that stacking that's going on. So when you're looking for solution, one of my suggestions today is going to be looking at things that stacks. I know you're seeing the other slides, but if I don't, let me see if I do this, if I can still see you guys. Okay, so look for things that stacks. So why sales tech? I think the fact that you guys are here speaks volume as to the fact that you believe in tech, right? When I look at sales tech, I look for a few things. Number one is what I call empowerment of the rep. Okay, my reps, I don't know about you, But my reps, and I employ consultants. My reps are my most expensive resource in my organization. Okay. Base plus commission plus bonus. And when you look into that, I want to free up as much of their time from doing admin as possible. Admin doesn't give me a good return on investment. Them talking to client does. So I'm going to look at any tech possible, allowing me to free them up from admin. And general admin with them generally comes from two things. But main thing is reporting. So if I can get them to do less reporting, so I can look into their pipeline myself without them having to spend a day, an hour doing pipeline report for me, that's well worth its weight in gold for getting something in sales tech for organization. Next thing with sales tech is the elimination of time-consuming tasks. Okay, what does time-consuming task mean? Time-consuming tasks can be things like follow-up. Okay, it could be things like cutting and pasting emails. Believe it or not, I still have clients that still do that. They like a particular email and they cut and paste that email. And they said, Agnes, but I need to customize. I'm like, you can automate these emails and still customize. Like long gone are the days, oh, but I don't want to sound like those spam emails that I get where it's of no relevance to me. And my reply back to them have always been, then those people are not doing it right. Because personalized email can still be automated now. Okay, you just have to know how to use your tech to do so. But those kind of like long gone are the day. Like now, I do a lot of CDAP. You see, at the there is an intro to CDAP at the end. But every time I see a client about CDAP, I have a CDAP follow up after discovery chain of email that goes out. And every time I see it, I enroll them in that, and then they get a sequence of 7 emails until they get back to me. And each one of them, I can guarantee you, sounds like I wrote it yesterday. So you just have to put thoughts into your initial drafting of that email so it doesn't sound flat, right? And I can make sure, again, I can task you guys to do that. And then the other thing is competitive advantage, okay? I can't rely on a rep to remember to follow up. If you're dealing with 4 client, 10 client, maybe, but if you're dealing in volumes of business, like 40, 100 client, you have to find something, even if it's as simple as a to-do list, right? Or a prompt list. I want my rep to open their CRM every day, and I want them to not think about what they have to do that day. I want them to have a to-do list on the right, and they're just checking it off. They should know, right? They're not trying to find tasks every day to do. They shouldn't. And that allows for efficiency. When I talk about us working with a company where they deal with 1 to 40 customer or prospect to 1 to 100, those are the little things that we ended up working with them on: automation, task lists, reporting, and then all of a sudden you produce double your capacity of salespeople. Okay, but automation is a big thing. They talked about automation. Automation is huge. And the more sophisticated you can get with automation, the more tailored your messaging could be. I'll give you an example. So I went to this year's Dreamforce. So last year's Dreamforce. Dreamforce is Salesforce annual conference. And their big, one of their big use case this year around customer touchpoint is F1. So they partner with F1 this year. So what you should be, Jerry, when you talk about customization and customer outreach, I think both Carol and Derek too, in your HubSpot and Salesforce instance, I know both of those have automated workflow. So it is a matter of you going into flow and going into automation and workflow to get those going. Because I'll give you this simple thought for F1. So the use case they used was the mom had previously purchased F1 merchandise. So she has a file in Salesforce. And they spend, I think, $500. So her cumulative value is $500. And then they projected that her lifetime value is $2,140. So then they've also profiled her that she lives in Miami. So when the Miami Grand Prix ticket became available, she got a notification. When, this crazy F1 fanatic, as soon as she saw those, she went and bought 3 tickets. She bought a ticket for herself, she bought a ticket for her husband, and she got a ticket for her son. Okay. Now, in the system, they're able to, now, obviously, her new value she spent, cumulative value she spent was $3,800. And then now her lifetime value have also increased to $8,000. Okay, of her projected lifetime increase. Then they show the workflow of selling her an experience package as the next email to go out to this girl, this woman. Yet the husband and son, because they're new to the system, they get an education email, no selling involved, right? Same household, different lifetime value, and different interaction, getting them different email. But all those is automated after they have designed the flow. I know that actually is very doable in both Salesforce and HubSpot. Cool. But that's what you want to get into, is that kind of thing. Now, this is an interesting statistic I got from BDC report, which I found astounding, which is why I think the Canada Digital, personally, I think this is why this Canada Digital program, adoption program exists today. I think back in 2019, they did this research about Canadian business digital maturity. And digital maturity speaks to how competitive we are in the global landscape. And only 19% are latecomers. Latecomers are people that's not using technology at all. Okay, let's leave those. 47% are in beginner. Beginner are people that's dabbling into 1 or 2 things. And I generally, from my experience, you get someone using a QuickBook, you get someone using a Sage, or you get someone using a CRM, but very basic tracking, customer tracking. Okay, that is in the beginner stage. The emerging stage are starting to realize technology can actually become a competitive advantage. Okay, so they're starting to see where there is a possibility of using technology everywhere in the business. Advanced companies, and if you look at it, only 5% is in the advanced of all of Canada, right? That is crazy. Only 5% of the small mid-sized business are actually using technology everywhere, and they talk to each other, driving efficiency. So when you look into that, imagine how much labor is being wasted because we're not using tech. But now, let me show you this other research from them that I found even more astonishing. Okay. When you talk to any small mid-sized business owner, right? When you say, oh, you know what? Let's say Salesforce, right? Let's say Salesforce, because Salesforce is not cheap, right? Let's say Salesforce, you're paying $1,200 annual. Oh, sorry, not annual, $1,200 per month. And then you have to get an integrator to come in and set up your instance in the first place. Let's say, I don't know, low end, $30,000, $25,000. You're like, holy crap, that's $30,000. I'm not going to spend that. Too expensive, right? Guys, I do this for a living. I know. That's exactly what they say. 9 out of 10. Okay. But yet, if there's an issue, there's almost no prompt that my president will say, yeah, let's go hire a headcount for $60,000. I'm cheap, $50,000. But doesn't even come close to the 30 I just told you to spend on Salesforce. But that's where this chart really spoke to me, right? Is how much you're supposed to spend on tech. If you're spending less on tech, like 1 to 4 employee, $50,000, 5 to 19 employee, you're at $200,000. I mean, I think that's a little big, even for me. But what I think what the research is trying to sell you is if you're not spending close to that much, it just means that you're throwing it in the labor side. It just means you're spending more money on labor rather than tech, right? But you have to also keep in mind that tech is scalable. I hate to say it, labor is not as scalable. Okay, so and I was doing a project with a chain daycare last year, and this just it illustrates my point. I was talking about customer experience. Well, how can we provide better customer experience for their parents? And right away he says, Agnes, I have a great idea. I'm gonna run date night once a month. I'm gonna open the daycare until 9 o'clock. I'm like, oh, my kid's no longer in daycare, but what a great idea. Great idea. I said, but I'm here to promote tech. So I want you to think about another reason. What else can you do in order for you to provide better customer experience? And on the tech side, I can't think of any. No, nothing. I'm like, okay, now think back to my daycare days. I went and I was like, you know what? One of the worst feeling ever for when my kid was in daycare is when I get that tap on my shoulder at 6:02. Mrs. Lan, you haven't paid this month's invoice. And I'm like, but I rushed from downtown. I used to work downtown. Rushed up from downtown, try to pick up Hugo at at closing. All I care about is going home to make dinner. Like I don't want to think about anything else. I'm not trying to jip you of your invoice. I just don't want to deal with it right now. Worst feeling. So I was telling him, I said, if there's an app that I can pay online, I can see my invoice, I can pay my invoice in an app, and I don't get that tap in my shoulder anymore, that's a great experience too. So all I'm trying to preach here is sometimes when you look into resolving company issue, there is a process solution, there's a people solution, but there's also a tech solution. And as you solution, as a leader in your organization, there's gotta be a balanced approach in solutioning, not just always throw people at the problem. Cool? Now, when I talk about tech or sales tech today's conversation, a few things to realize or think about. One thing is the idea of centralization. Long gone are the day where you can have multiple database. Like I think we've all been there, where you have your pipeline and an Excel, right? It's good, but if I'm managing 7 people and 7 Excels, that consolidating that is also time, right? So gotta have and start to think about the idea of centralized database. Okay, there's a big debate out there around like different what we call best in breed solution versus one centralized solution or one core solution. Okay, but I don't think that's for today's discussion. But definitely think about the idea of centralizing your database, allowing you to have a holistic view of your data, because that's the only reason or only way you can trend, right, and make business decisions, especially real-time business decisions. Of course, the second thing is efficiency. I'm not leveraging technology if there's no efficiency. I can also make an argument that we need better customer care, and hence that's also efficiency, as well as idea of analytics. So if I don't have everything in the right one place where I can make good decision and good insight and data modeling, likely the health of my organization is gonna fall on the fact of someone's gut. And a lot of times in small mid-sized business, someone's gut is quite good. But as you grow, that's gonna get further and further out of hand. Okay, and you also don't want the decision making to be in the hand of one person that may or may not have a full holistic view because everyone's busy. So there's something for you guys to think about. The other thing for you guys to also think about is the less sexy part, right? The security part. How do you make sure that your security is in safe place? We have a cybersecurity trainer here. And his thing is, I hate how pessimistic he is, but he always start off every session by saying it's not if you're gonna have cyber, it's when you're gonna. So let's talk about how we're gonna. And I'm like, oh, so pessimistic, but I can't disagree. I can't disagree. So definitely, as you guys use more technology, security is a big consideration. Flexibility is another one. I work with a lot of oddly enough, I've never had a lot of accounting firm clients until the last couple of years, but we now have a lot of accounting firm clients. And the biggest issue with the accounting firms right now is they can't keep their people. So it's funny because that's an industry where traditionally there isn't a lot of turnover. But in the last couple of years, because of COVID, working from home, this and that, they have realized that they don't have to work in an accounting office. So they are actually opting for places where it allows them to have remote work. And a lot of these accounting firms aren't suited, upfitted for remote work. So the idea of flexibility and working any place, anywhere is important. And with some of the accounting firms we're working with right now, not only are they talking about remote work for their worker, they're talking about Agnes. I need remote work so that I can hire that person from Mountain. That's where the conversation is going, right? Because flexibility is a huge thing. Communication is the other one that's very important, especially in today's remote workplace. But even beyond remote workplace, I find like, before COVID, we used to go on these tours and shows where we talk to clients about when does communication breakdown happen? Because all of a sudden, a well-oiled machine, when you get to a certain size, it seems like everything crumbled. And a big part of it is because of communication. They use pre-COVID, the 10 of them that run the show to get them to $2-3 million, where they were all in the same room or within very close proximity of each other anyways. So everyone hear each other talking, even though they're not directly communicated to. But when you get to a certain size, that doesn't happen anymore. And then all of a sudden, you don't see that well-oiled engine like before, right? And of course, as that happens, then profit generally erodes. So having good communication, I think a lot of times people are like, oh, good communication is just for culture. No, good communication is for productivity. So how do you ensure to leverage tech for good communication? Any questions so far? Especially in the sales and ops handoff, I find a lot of times my sales guys are not very good with handing off their client information to ops. So I was working with another client, a sunroom client, where he's on the road all the time. And, as simple, like, think outside the box a little bit sometimes, right? Whenever we talk about sales tech, I'm not talking about just, oh my God, CRM, right? Or AI analytics tool, right? Like for that client, when we look at exactly where the inefficiencies are, I mean, we got them some really cool AR tool too. So don't get me wrong, there are other things, but one of the more cheap but very effective tool that we suggested for them was this speech to text app that they put on their phone, because then they also use Salesforce as well. So then on the drive to their next appointment, these are sunroom people, they build sunroom. So when they do that, they'll open their Salesforce client file, and then they will just text speech to text their everything that happened right into the Salesforce file. And then these people are not spending extra time back in the office to download that information to the ops team. So, and then obviously when generally what the ops people are complaining is about the sales people don't transfer 100% of the knowledge, but then it's also, weeks after the fact that they've gone to their house, right? So something as simple as that speech to text, which no longer is, really anything sophisticated, can really make the workplace more efficient when you actually break down where the inefficiencies are in your sales and marketing process. Sales tax benefits are for buyers, not just sellers. We always say you want to improve the engagement response time. Like, I don't know if you guys know, there's a statistics around the idea of if someone opened your proposal and you're able to reply within 24 hours, your closing ratio is higher. Okay, so sales technology, CRM, most CRM actually, aside from the really not good ones, you know when they open your email. They'll also know when they forwarded your email. You also know, some of the apps, you can actually see what page they stay on for how long, right? So if you know when your proposal, in my world implementation, for example, if they stay on the implementation page longer, I know the conversation next time I talk to them has to be around implementation. If they stay on the pricing page longer, that means they're price sensitive. So the next conversation needs to be around pricing, right? But all those insights you should be able to get from working with a good CRM. You also want to increase the size of stakeholder engagement. So I don't think it's as appropriate for you guys, but they're saying that nowadays the buying decision of purchase have gone from 3, if depending on how big it's a buy, to 5. So now more people have a say in buying decisions now. So how do you get those stakeholders, all of them engaged at the right time? And a lot of times also with the right messaging, right? You want to improve the quality of the stakeholder engagement, like I mentioned to you, understanding which page they land on so that you can have good conversation. Remember going back to my van versus F-150 conversation, right? You don't want to dilute the conversation. You want to get to it, you want to solve a problem, and you want to move on. Because if you say anything is not as relevant, people kind of lose interest, and then when they lose interest, they a lot of times also lose interest in your product. So you want to be focused. And then the last was improving the quality of the discovery. So you want to use technology like the Zoom Infos of the world. Actually, Zoom Info has a really powerful feature that I love. So it's called intent. There's not just Zoom Info, there are other technology that do intent as well, where you can see what the client have researched on for the last 30 days. So in my world, for example, I tag keywords like sales training or strategic or strategy or sales strategy. When I see that certain client have or certain prospect have look into and research on sales training, and then they'll give it an engagement score so that I know those are hot to hit. So then when you as a salesperson, when you go and you reach out, you obviously want to close the people that are ready to close versus the people that are not ready to close. So technology and features like intent can help with targeting the right audience in the first place. And I use it is when my client is on that list, then I know which of my clients from a sequential order I should hit them in. So far, so good. Next one. Capability of sales tech or capability. So, like I was mentioning to you just now, sales tech have gone like haywire in the world. We used to do, I was telling Kelly, we used to commission one sales tech landscape analysis a year in June. It's a 3 weeks exercise. Everyone get to understand the new tech, the tech in this space, whether it's enablement, training, efficiency, automation, and prospecting. They break down sales tech in various different categories. And last year, and around December time, I was starting to see a lot of stuff happening in this world. So I asked the analyst team, I said, okay, can you guys update our sales tech landscape? And they came back in 3 days, and I said, just update it. I said, just update it. Just update it. I made it like it's a no-brainer. And they came back to me in 3 days and said, Agnes, the landscape in sales tech have changed so much. I'm gonna need 3 weeks. It's not an update. Like everything have changed. So and I said, okay, then that's not worth it. Just do it once a year. But one thing that you have to realize in the sales tech world is that there's a lot of consolidation. So As responsible consultants, I tend not to suggest techs that are less than 2 to 3 years in age. Just because although it's the most brilliant, like I fell in love with this sales compensation calculator app and loved it. Toronto based, right gamification in there. So I was going to start to introduce it to clients, but it didn't meet our first criteria. Is they've only been existent for the 18 months. And when the landscape consolidates so quickly, it's hard for me to recommend something that's less than 3 years old, because either they fold or they get bought out. And the unfortunate part about getting bought out is sometimes they get bought out and then they're done. Their grandfather, no more R&D is put into that anymore. They just wanted the customer database. Versus some is true, like when Salesforce bought Pardot, they continue to develop Pardot, right? So, but you can't guarantee that. So lately I've took a more conservative approach in suggesting tech, just because there's so much consolidation going on. And I would say when I talk about consolidation, I'm talking about like 40% year over year, logos are gone from our analysis. So definitely, as you guys shop for sales tech, I'm not saying don't go with new technology. That's not what I'm saying. Take it with a grain of salt. Understand that's what's happening in the marketplace. Okay. And decision making. So I'm going to go in, and actually that lends us nicely to some decision making stuff. So when you go and do your evaluation, I want you to go look into various different options, right? Don't fall in love with the one demo that you see. And the reason for that is because I can tell you there's so much money put into SaaS sales that it's very easy for you to be wooed and wowed by these shiny new toys. Okay, so go in. I always tell the client, chart out your top 5 to 7 workflow that you cannot do without, and ask them to demo those to you. If you do it the other way around, they're going to show you their best workflow. And of course, you're going to be impressed. But do they cover all your key areas? So definitely, from within, ask them your own workflow. You also want to make sure, that there is alignment with what you want and their piece. So your workflow, getting them to demo that, and then research on the potentials. And this is when I'm giving you these advices beyond sales tech, but today's conversation is around sales tech. So what tech can do that? I can tell, like today I had a conversation with an arborist. Actually, they are tree health people, and there's big turnover problem in their industry. So when I give them solution, I gave them a solution for internal training, and then I gave them a solution for if they were going to monitor, because they came back to me and said, Agnes, all these arborists having the same problem. Maybe I can monetize our training. So I said, okay. So I look for it. Obviously, the same platform for internal training is different than a platform for monetizing training. So we found them a platform for monetizing training, and we found them a custom built out LMS as well. So when you look into that, you're really looking into your business scenario. And when I'm talking to you about it right now, can you feel my energy in that I'm not concerned about the technology. I'm concerned about your strategy, right? The shiny new toy by itself doesn't generate money. The shiny new toy needs to go with a strategy to generate money. Okay, so don't get your cart before the horse. I always find that some of my president, they're so like, oh, so-and-so talked about this in tech group. So-and-so talked about it. Let's just buy that, right? No, it might be the right strategy for them. It might not be the right strategy for you. So know why you're doing it in the first place, and really put down a comparison chart. And here's a quick comparison chart for you. I wouldn't see less than 3 demos. Okay. I also wouldn't see 100 demos, but I wouldn't see less than 3 demos. These are a few things I do to analyze. Number one, I analyze costs. Okay, cost it. I know I can make a good case about buying something that's $100,000, but the number of head count, the potential, potential revenue, the halo effect from the potential. Forget it. Understand your budget. Okay, understand the cost associated. The other thing is the alignment with objective. Don't go blindly shopping for tech alone. How is this aligned to something that is an issue right now? So when you're talking about earlier, I said, efficiency and productivity, right? Competitive advantage. And sometimes I talk about competitive necessity, right? And also, when you talk about, and the last obviously is generating revenue. How does it fit into my objectives I predefined? Okay. A lot of times when you talk about tech, you're also talking about multi-year objective that you predefined. Okay, because tech is not I'm 2023 objective, right? How is this going to flow in the long term? The training and skill required. Like a lot of times clients are asking me to prescribe them marketing tool. Oh shoot, I'm almost overrun. Sorry guys. So Brian's laughing at me. So isn't just about it's easy for me to prescribe a marketing tech, but if you don't have anyone in house that know how to do marketing, the tech by itself doesn't help. So understanding that as a manager, your requirement to get your people in a way in alignment so that they can actually do their job with the tech that you provide for them. Obviously, there's the integration piece. I told you I don't want silo and standalone databases anymore. So how they integrate with other apps. And then the other thing, last but not least, is growth potential. Are these people spending money on R&D, right? Are they going to grow with me? So what does that look like? Okay. Next is building your own plan. So I'm going to stop right there. Building your own plan is, well, what are you going to do? What is your objective? What is your maturity? And how are you going to get there? There is the initial research and finding a vendor, but then there's also the implementation piece. I can't stress enough, app don't turn on by itself. There's gotta be real thought in and around how to implement it such that it allows you to have full adoption. Guys, I know I am up against time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this government program that we've been working with, so you know what resources out there. We've been doing a lot of kind of the digital adoption program. So Kelly, I'll send you the link to that government website. It's a government subsidized program where like you can hire a digital advisor like us, and the government will cover 90% of our fee. And then with the report that we write, you can actually upload it back to the government website, and the government will loan you up to $100,000, either $50,000 or $100,000, so that you can execute your plan on a zero interest loan. So that's been really, really popular because I think, well, one, for cash flow purposes, but also it's good insight because a lot of small mid-sized businesses don't know what's out there. Back to what Mohammed was saying. So getting an advisor has certainly been a big part of the success of this program. And here's my contact information if you guys need, and Kelly has my contact information, so you can get it from Kelly as well. Guys, I'm so sorry to overrun.
Agnes, I was going to ask if you have a few minutes to stay anyways, if people have questions, but I was also going to say on that CDAP program, we're going to be running, it's not on the calendar yet, but I think it's March the 8th with E&Y. They're going to talk about funding opportunities and, some of the grants and things that are available. And they said one of the things that they will talk about is that CDAP program. So obviously something like that, we can connect people back to yourself. I do have a question. It was an interesting stat when you had said that with BDC, that really only 5% of organizations across Canada are digitally advanced, which to me is surprising. But then when you start explaining it, I think, okay, is it because of cost? Is it because just a lack of understanding how to use these technologies. Some of this, as you start talking, my head spins thinking, this is really complex. How would I ever be able to understand all the complexities? Like you talk about stacking this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, I can only do one thing at one time. So how do you put all of that together, and how do you kind of go through some of that training? So then what are some of the things that you would look for to maybe ease into it? Especially because when I look at it, you deal with small to mid-sized businesses. I'm sure that, you're not looking at, oh my gosh, I've got $250,000 to spend on something. Some people are just trying to get through the month.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, and I have this kind of conversation every day. So a couple of scenarios for you to think about. So we have a lot of manufacturers or distributors. So the conversation there is around, well, let everyone, like all the distributor know they need an ERP to be organized, an enterprise resource planning system. They know they need that. But, when you talk about ERP, everyone talks about NetSuite, right? And NetSuite is $250,000 to implement. So they're like, well, I don't have $250,000. Doesn't mean I use nothing, right? But, and that's a conversation I constantly have with my client about when to use what tech at what time. So there's ERP that is also $50 a seat a month, right? You don't have to go with the Cadillac if you're not ready. Civic would get, although Civic's not cheap anymore either. Like a bicycle will get you there just the same. Because a big part of this is also getting into the idea of tracking in the first place. And then if we need, as an organization grow bigger, then you move to a bigger package. But there, like I want client to understand they don't have to go from 0 to 100. Right, it's conversation. Like yesterday, I was also dealing with actually a chain hair salon. We have a lot of different verticals.
Yeah,
and they were talking about marketing actually, and we prescribed a marketing, an all-in-one marketing tool. Actually, Carol, we prescribed HubSpot marketing. And we know HubSpot marketing is going to do a great job for them because of the landing pages, because of the metrics, because of the automated tools, because of the content management system. So we know it can, right? But the conversation yesterday was around, it's also, even with the discount, you're talking about $400 or $500 a month. You're not going to be cheaper than that. Okay. So, and it's a lot of money. $400, $500 a month is a lot of money. So when you're thinking about that, is there an alternative at $40 a month? So and I always tell the client, like, I'm cheap. So I don't want to be paying empty rent. I always tell my client. So yes, I'm not saying $400 a month is not affordable. Okay, I think it's affordable. It's the choices. I think we're talking about choices. But I also advise that if you don't end up using all the bells and whistles, then why am I paying for all the bells and whistles? So be realistic about how much feature you're really going to use. So yesterday with the salon, we actually landed on a technology that's $40 a month, because all they care about when we break down the business process and where they want to go next, they really just want to hype up the social media. So, but they're putting both feet in to talk about social media. So we actually work with them on finding a social media scheduling tool that spits out analytics. So that way, and it's $40 a month for 3 users. So, but they're going to post 3 times a day. They promise me rigidly, they're going to rigidly post 3 times a day. They're going to create good content. They're going to divide different. One of the reasons we picked that one is because it allows them to have different accounts. So that in your case, the F-150 account, the Van Mom account are different accounts in their world that they have to manage. So, and maybe just doing that for the first year, right? But that's, when I talked to you, Kelly, earlier about having these conversations with clients, that's the type of conversation. We're talking about objective. We're talking about realistically how much you're going to use. We're talking about finding the tech for them for today and probably for the next 2 years. I don't want them to switch next year, but get into a next plateau, then we can have another talk around switching to other stuff.
Okay.